So, right, as some of the more observant of you will have noticed, I've got one of these nice pink T-shirts on because before 9 o'clock this morning I didn't know that I was doing a talk. But because there was a free slot, I sort of jumped at the chance. So what I'm going to be talking about is Ralph Wiggum hacking the juice shop. Before that, I'll do a little intro of myself. I am old. Yes, please come in. I am very old. I remember Java 1.0. I used it in anger. I've had a career as a maker of software, as in I've been a developer. I've been in various boring places, and I pivoted into security a few years back, 5, 6, something like that. And most recently, I've been at a rather prestigious place in the cybersecurity industry, Marks and Spencer's. Now, I wasn't there when the incident happened, and I'm not going to talk about it because I haven't told my bosses that I'm going to do this, so they can find out on YouTube later. I usually have got a lot of different hats, not just literally, also figuratively. I tend to be in architecture sessions, development, mostly complaining to people. Anyway, so that's me. The story behind the graphic, which is looking a bit mangled on the screen here, is that my wife came shouting at me one time when I was watching television, Jerry, you're on the telly, and this was the Dog's Trust knitted puppet thing, so since then I've adopted it. Granted, it was before I had the beard, so the likeness is not as thing. Now, let's start with a quiz. So yes, there will be audience participation. These doors have been programmed to only open inwards, so if more people join, but you cannot escape. So first, what is AI? Can anybody tell me what AI is? Yes? Ooh, this is going to be a tough crowd, I think.
Models of data using random dots.
Yes. Now, this rock here is the one that you'll have lived under if you've not heard of AI. Now, with AI, I mean generally large language models, because they're sort of used interchangeably these days, even though that there's lots of other AI, but we're not going to talk that, because otherwise I'll be standing here until tomorrow, and we don't want that. And so essentially the idea of a large language model is that you get a representation of some input that gets turned into tokens. Tokens, for want of a better explanation, are words, and then you have a mathematical likelihood of what the next word would be. So essentially, a LLM is if I were to ask you to tell a story, and everyone says one word, the likelihood is that something coherent comes out. But there's also quite a likelihood that something incoherent comes out. Anyway, enough about AI. What is Copilot? Now, I put the logos of lots of different model providers on here. We've got Anthropic, we've got OpenAI, we've got Copilot there, we've got Cursor, and essentially, the one of the things about all these logos is that some people say they all look like arseholes. So, that's one thing that once you sort of see all the AI logos, you will not get away from the fact they're all sort of shaped a bit like that. Lots of companies are following this trend. Copilot in this instance, what I mean by that is the GitHub Copilot, where it's essentially a way of talking to lots of different models. Now, the interesting thing about these LLM providers is there's a lot of... a month is quite a long time when it comes to AI, and maybe last December or a bit before then, there was a big difference whether you used Claude or whether you used Copilot or whether you used Cursor. These days, it doesn't actually, I find, make that much of a difference. The command line interface that you got on Cursor and on Copilot, they're pretty much interchangeable. Anyway, quick diversion to something Juice Shop. In this case, I mean the OWASP Juice Shop. Now, I did say this was a quiz, so who can tell me what the OWASP Juice Shop is?
Site you can use to practice.
Absolutely. So it's an intentionally vulnerable web application that you can use to try and practice getting hacking your way into it. The version that I was using had 111 challenges. They're updating it continuously. These days, it even has got some AI challenges where a chatbot is there and you sort of try to hack the chatbot. Now, this is an example of the Copilot command line interface, which these days you can use for codings. One of the annoying things about the command line interface is that you have to press approve a lot, because it asks you every single time, do you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? Now, obviously, this being a security-minded conference, there are flags that you can use in Copilot and Claude. You call it YOLO mode, or the live dangerously flag, which basically gets rid of all these approve steps where you just let it run. Somebody with security in my job title, I don't like doing that. That feels a bit too dangerous. Now this comes where Ralph comes in. Now, what does a Simpsons character have to do with AI? Does anybody know? Nope. Well, Ralph Wiggum is the famous Simpsons character that is a bit simple. And there's this scene where he's at the playground and he tries to do something and he falls off the slide, and then he just tries again. He gets a little bit further, he falls off the slide again. And essentially he just is so naive, and he just keeps trying and trying and trying and trying until he gets it right. And effectively, that's what I'm trying to do. I don't actually want to hit approve every time. I want to have the AI model do stuff for me without me having to sit there and watching it. Interesting, at the beginning when people were doing this, some sort of called it Netflix programming, because you watch a bit of your favorite show, and in the meantime, you're sort of occasionally on the screen hitting approve, approve, approve. Now, this diagram is what I ended up with. The Ralph loop is so-called after an Australian AI practitioner whose name now escapes me. But essentially, he put a shell loop around a prompt and just gave the same instruction to it and said, right, do that. And as part of the instructions he had, and if you're finished, give it a tick. And you essentially give it the same instruction over and over and over again until you're finished. Now, the reason why this seems to work better than just having one long session of AI is to do with the way that AI, when you have your chat session, the AI that you're talking to, the model that you're talking to, if you remember the sort of prediction that you have where, it's one word after the other and what is the statistically most likely next word to be, when you have your conversation with an AI, all the history of the conversation gets sent to the AI every single time. So if you have a long conversation, then that whole long conversation and your new question gets presented to the model, and the model will come back with the most likely answer. Problem is, when the conversation gets too long, it starts forgetting the things that you said at the beginning of the conversation. So by essentially running a single prompt and then quitting and then starting again, you're sort of helping to keep that conversation history relatively clear, and that's what I'm doing. Now, again, I've got a security hat on. The reason why you don't want to let an AI model loose on your laptop without any guardrails is because it can do rather nasty things. And there's a rule called the lethal trifecta, which Simon Wilson proposed, which is a sort of good model about how to think about AI safety. Out of these three, access to private data, accepting untrusted content, and the ability to communicate externally, pick at most two of them. So if you are accepting chatbot input that external users are giving, don't give them access to your private data and the ability for them to send stuff out. Because it'll end up in tears, because somebody will try to do prompt injection, which basically means it hides the... at the beginning of the AI thing, you used to say, ignore previous instruction and do me this. And the AI would then ignore its previous instructions and do the rest of it. Anyway, so like I said, I don't want to let the AI model have full control of my computer. So I'm using Docker containers to isolate it in a sort of in a network, and I'm only allowing access via a controlled route. And I'm only giving it the data that I want it to work on. Now that that's in place, I can switch on the YOLO mode. I can switch on the mode where I don't need to hit approve time and time again. And I thought, this is where the talk gets its title, what happens if I point the model at the juice shop and tell it to hack it? And I put a proxy in the middle so I can see what it's doing. Anyway, let's have a look. So, what you're seeing here is me having... This is the wrong thing. Right. This is where it gets a bit chaotic, because I'm trying to do a live demo. So let's pray to the internet gods that the internet doesn't disappear. Right. So what I have done, I've created a prompt. This is the instructions that I've given the AI. So I tell it that you are a security researcher. I don't know, but it seems tradition in whenever you prompt things that you give it a role, seems to force it in. And essentially I'm telling it to hack the juice shop. I'm trying to prevent it from just using previously known websites. And I just keep doing it. And what has been happening since the talk started, in the background, I've been talking. Well, not I. The AI has been talking to the juice shop that is running in a Docker container on my machine, from a different Docker container which contains Copilot, and it's been going around trying to hack it. Now, when I look at the progress so far, it has solved 7 challenges, which is nice. Some of them are rather simplistic. Now, this here is the scoreboard of the juice shop. So the more that you hack, the more scores you get, and it tells you which challenges there are, and this is where normally as a human you would go and say, oh, I haven't solved this yet, let's see what it says, and I'll try to to go and go through it. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm not sure whether it's clear what I'm doing here, but essentially this is the output, and you can see where it keeps going round and round in the same circles, creating a plan, writing a report. It writes down the kind of things that it's found, and then starts all over again to sort of say, okay, now I have so many vulnerabilities. It has the ability to check against the juicer to see which challenges is already solved. And now it just keeps going and going. And this is where dealing with LLMs becomes a little bit tedious, because you wait a lot. And in future it'll become even more tedious, because more of the providers will have rate limits, because the price at which they're currently selling the stuff is a loss. And it can be a little bit on the expensive side. Anyway, so you can see down here we've got the challenge progress, we've solved 7, and I'm saying the flag that I put into the prompt is that I wanted to write a done file, and if that's written, then it will stop. Otherwise, it'll just start again, and it keeps going and going and going. I can have a look at the kinds of requests that have been going around. So you can see it's trying to send through particular authorization headers. And all it's doing here, it's putting together shell commands. It's putting together curl requests. It's not using any particularly clever tools. It's just using what it's got to hand as part of the bog standard Linux install of the Docker container that it runs in. Now this gives me a window into what the AI is actually doing. So I can check what it's doing. I can see that it's trying to get to certain things. It's getting everything 403 forbidden. So of course the curse of the demo gods is going through. Is it actually doing anything? Possibly not. So let's have a look at the report. One of the nice things about working with an AI is you just tell it to write up reports. It creates markdown files, and you can often see exactly what it is doing. And I've told it to put together a sample report. Right. I think what I'm going to do is, because this is not looking as impressive as I hoped, I'm just going to go through and do it in good old Blue Peter style. Here's one that I made earlier. And essentially, the fun thing about using this technique is that you can do something else. You can let it run in the background. One of the things that I would say, it's not particularly clever. Even the latest models, and this at the moment is using GPT 5.5. It gets you to a certain place. And that certain place is, I found it impressive because when I ran it the other day, it solved 71% of the juice shop challenges on its own, without any input from me. I just let it run and let it run and let it run, and after a few hours it said, right, I'm finished. And I looked at it, and because the juice shop allows you to check the challenge board, I was able to see, it actually did solve quite a lot of those issues. Big problem, to a certain extent, is how accurate is that? Because one of the things is that the OWASP juice shop isn't exactly a, how shall we say, an unknown quantity. There are blog posts that are written about how to do the OWASP juice shop. There are walkthroughs, there are cheat sheets, there are all kinds of things that are published on the internet to tell you how to solve the juice shop. And all of those get scraped by the AI model providers and get ingested into their model. So effectively, I have asked the AI to solve the juice shop, and what it's done is it's gone online and looked at the walkthrough and then went, oh, and now I'm going to apply that. Now, it does feel a bit like cheating, and the reason why I built this sort of proxies where I can see what kind of things it does is exactly because I wanted to check. Does it make leaps of imagination where it tries something, a few requests, and then suddenly it kind of goes and finds something out that you shouldn't really, it hasn't got any reason for, where it suddenly goes, oh yeah, the password is over there, and it didn't do any enumeration of paths, and suddenly it finds a path that is non-obvious. These are the problems that you can find when you're testing AI models against something where there's an existing solution. The other thing that is interesting is, can you actually trust the feedback that it's giving you? I've seen it write a nice sounding report and saying that something is a massive vulnerability, and then I looked at it and said, yeah, that's bollocks. And that's not true. And because it formats it into a nice report, and because it sounds very convincing, and it said this is a critical vulnerability because this, and this, if you don't know what you're talking about, then you're not going to question it. If you do know what you're talking about, you can kind of go, yeah, is that really true? And the frustrating things when working with AI is that when you push back a lot of the time, it goes, oh, you made a really great point and you're absolutely right. And then it turns a sort of 180 and says, yeah, it's not a critical at all. Actually, it's not a vulnerability whatsoever. So I've used AI a lot, but I actually hate it with passion. I distinctly dislike using it because philosophically it's sort of, you're kind of delegating thinking to some machine. And I can feel it when I'm doing sort of development, because it's so easy to just go, oh, it gets you 95% there. And if you understand what it's doing, then you can push back against some of the idiotic suggestions that it'll make. But because it's so easy, you kind of go, well, I don't really care how efficient it is. As long as it solves my problem, it'll solve my problem, because it's so quick to get there. And I find that really soul-destroying. But it's also, when I'm considering that my day job at the moment is creating documentation that in most likelihood nobody ever reads, I'm like, my new favorite command, by the way, on a Mac is caffeinate. One of the biggest issues that I had when I first started playing with these Ralph loops is that my laptop used to go to sleep. So I'd still have to sit there and wiggle the mouse every 5 minutes. Now, obviously, you can change your settings and change the sleep mode and if you're connected and all that sort of thing. But sometimes you actually want to keep an eye on it, but you're watching this nice program and half an hour in you realize, oh no, the laptop's gone to sleep again. And instead of working overnight, it just goes and works for half an hour. Caffeinate allows you to temporarily disable the going to sleep. And there's two different versions. If you want to leave the screen on, then you do caffeinate D, and it will not send your laptop to sleep without having to change your settings. Which, considering as I was working in a lot of the shell scripts anyway, I just open a new terminal, caffeinate, off I go. So yeah, Ralph. When I first did this, it was about 3 months ago, which probably means by now this is a completely outdated and outmoded AI technique. I use it less and less now because I find that it's nice to get you 80% there, but then you kind of still have to do lots of things. So the point of this talk is well, I think the point is in danger, because who knows what will happen with any AI things that you're using. You find that 3 months later nobody uses it anymore, and that's like, what are you doing? You're living in the Stone Ages. So I'd like to leave you on that note where you've just sat through 30 minutes of me rambling on about something, and you end up with something that is next to useless. I hope you found it enjoyable anyway, and I'm joking. It is something that is very interesting. I'd like to leave you with one little note. So obviously I've got Copilot running. How much did it cost? Base it on the transcripts of today. Off it goes. Obviously I could do this manually, but it's an AI talk. And if the internet hasn't disabled itself, so essentially what I'm doing here, because I keep the transcripts as part of my Ralph loop, and as part of the transcripts it tells you how many AI credits it's been using. I tell you that, and yes, I've spent $9, just to give you an idea of the kind of pricing that is now coming along. It used to be a lot cheaper because you used to get a flat rate. Now this has moved to usage-based pricing. It can get a bit expensive. Now, $10 for half an hour might not seem that expensive, depending on whether, as has been my case, I'm not paying for it. This is the company's. So again, don't tell them. Oh, YouTube. But yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've got any questions, I think now is the time.